In our last video regarding money flows, we met Greg, who just retired at 63. His bills are covered mostly. He keeps asking himself one question: what happens if I need more income later and I don't want to go back to work? Today, we're going to walk through Greg's real-life decision to buy and later sell a rental property, and I'll show you how Bolden helps him see the full retirement picture. Hi, I'm Judy, and this is Reflections in Real Talk, where we talk about how to analyze retirement decisions objectively. Greg retired at 63. He did most things right. He saved consistently. He paid off his house. He has Social Security coming in later. But Greg is cautious, and he was curious if he could use a real estate investment to generate some passive income. Now, I know what you're thinking. Being a landlord isn't all that passive, and that's true. But Greg retired early and is very active and has the energy and time to take on this role. He doesn't want to rely too heavily on his investment portfolio in the early years of retirement. Greg likes the idea of income that shows up every month. He doesn't love watching the market swing, and he keeps hearing real estate is safer. You can't outlive rental income. So Greg starts wondering, should I buy a rental property to bolster my retirement income? Let's look at the price to rent decision. Greg doesn't want to rush in. He heard about something called the price to rent ratio. In simple terms, it helps answer this question: is it cheaper to buy or to rent in this area? I'll add the calculations in the free companion guide in the description below. Lower ratios often mean rents are strong compared to prices. Higher ratios can mean prices are expensive for the rent you can charge. Greg looks for an area where the numbers make sense, not flashy, not trendy, just steady. First, we'll take a look at what happens if Greg buys the property. He's considering a smaller 2-bedroom, 2-bath in a modest area. It's not glamorous, but it's an area with strong rental demand, reasonable purchase prices, and predictable tenants. Now, the big question becomes, how does this affect his retirement long term? Since Greg already uses Bolden, he's curious how he can model it in the program and see how it impacts his cash flows, his net worth, and his taxes. If you'd like to model this along with me, you can use my affiliate link in the description below. There's a free 14-day trial, or if you sign up for the Planner Plus with my link, it helps to support this channel at no additional cost to you, so I can continue making free videos on topics like this. Now let's jump right into the demo. First, I select Greg's baseline scenario in the Scenario Manager, and I've already cloned this. I clicked the 3 dots and I duplicated the scenario, and I called it Rental Income Evaluation. So now that I've got this scenario built out as number 2, I can simply click on the arrow to launch that scenario, and we'll start out with his baseline, which is $1.475 million, $4.3 million at longevity, and 99% chance of success using the Monte Carlo projections. And just to review, the longevity age for Greg is set to 90 and the year 2052. Let's also look at some of the rate assumptions. We have general inflation at 2.5%, medical inflation rate at 4%, Social Security COLA at 2.5%, and housing appreciation rate at 2.5% as well. Next, we're going to go into home and real estate. He does have a primary mortgage, but we're going to skip down to future real estate purchases, and we're going to enter this property, the rental income 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, which he plans to purchase next year at age 64. He does intend to have a mortgage, and the purchase price is $500,000 with a 20% down payment of $100,000. He's going to take that $100,000 from his certificate of deposit, and he has a 30-year mortgage at 6.25%. Now Bolden can track this property as part of his net worth over time. Next, we're going to model net rental income. Here's where Greg stays realistic. He enters net rental income, not gross rent. That means accounting for maintenance, insurance, property management, if he decides to go that route, vacancies, and repairs. Greg doesn't assume everything goes perfectly. Next, we select income, then passive income, and enter rental income net. You can hit the pencil icon to enter the pre-tax income and the start and stop age. Now here I aligned this with his longevity age, 89 years and 11 months, because this is our first evaluation, and including the historical average. You can also modify that with your own custom rate or select optimistic, pessimistic rates. And that's where we're going to capture the income for that income property, and click Save. Next, let's look at expenses and healthcare under recurring expenses. And let's modify the detailed budgeter, clicking that edit pencil. And now you can see that the rental income property is automatically populated in home related section with the subcategories here labeled future mortgage, monthly 2418, must spend and like to spend. That's his fixed mortgage payment over 30 years. Keep in mind his income right out of the gate is $2,000, so he's going to be in the red. You can also add some additional expenses here. This was modeled out prior for his primary residence doing some home improvements, but you could certainly add some expenses here like a remodel for the rental property. So you can see in the first couple years, Greg is definitely not going to be generating additional revenue from this income property. In fact, he's risking that $100,000 that he's got in his CD that he might be using to offset sequence of return risk. And he's got to have an additional $418 cash outlay in the best of circumstances for that rental property. He's also got a 30-year mortgage, and keep in mind that Greg is 63, so he'd be 93 when he paid off that mortgage, and his longevity age is 90. So with this current plan, he's not going to be able to pay off that mortgage. Now, he does pay off his primary mortgage, and we can look at that under income and expenses. Here's our income and expenses insights page, and we can look at it year by year. Here's his investment income, $6,259. Required minimum distribution is 0 right away this year. His savings drawdown is quite large. That includes the $100,000 from the CD plus his living expenses. And his passive income is only $1,951 because he's purchasing that home towards the end of the year. Now let's look at 2027. So in 2027, his investment income is reduced down to $914. His savings drawdown is $42,185. He starts collecting Social Security partially through the year, and that equates to $8,012, and his passive income is $23,423. Next, let's look at 2028. Again, the same passive income, and you can see that it's slowly climbing up at that 2.5% assumed rate, and that passive income is the seafoam green bar at the top. So 23,423, slowly inching up at 2.5%. So it does contribute nicely to his retirement paycheck, as you can see, creating another stream of income for him. But now let's look at the expense side of the equation. So again, in the first year, he's going to have to pay that $100,000 down payment. And don't forget with real estate purchase, and I didn't include this in the simplified illustration, there are also closing costs, things like title and escrow fees, inspections, and so forth. In some states, you'll have to pay the buyer broker fee as well. All right, now the next year, he's made that $100,000 cash outlay. Real estate purchase is 0, but he does have a hefty mortgage payment of $44,751, and that includes both his primary residence and the rental property. So we can see that played out here, and that does not decline because, as I said, it's a 30-year mortgage. Let's go back to home and real estate. And the primary residence, when you hit that pencil key, you're going to see the year that he's paying off that property based on his payment of 2035. Now let's go back to insights and lifetime income projections. And you can see in the year 2035, his primary mortgage is paid off. All right. So also, just want to point out on this chart, the lifetime income projections, the expenses and taxes are this line here, We've got the milestones here indicated by the little circles. This is when he's going to collect Social Security using this scenario. Going to start collecting Social Security at 64 and 10 months, so right before his 65th birthday. And let's go back to income and expenses again. And now that we've got these numbers on display here, this is the rental income evaluation. We've got income, lifetime income of $2,422,166 and lifetime expenses $1,904,373. Now we can quickly go back to the other scenario and we can see we have lifetime expenses of $1,455,122 and lifetime expenses of $1,005,902. We can also go into the scenario manager and we can click these two and compare them side by side. And now we can quickly eyeball, was this plan worth it? So here we have his net worth at the end of plan, $3.473 million. And with the rental income, a lifetime net worth at the end of plan, $4.744 million. He does have a higher net worth at the end of longevity, and he is fully funded throughout this plan. His average income in retirement is $7,937 a month, so a little bit more, but of course his average expenses are higher as well. He has higher net savings at longevity, significantly higher lifetime income, and of course higher lifetime spending. Now his taxes are significantly higher as well. His federal tax rate is jumped up to 11.2% by purchasing this property and generating that additional income. And his debt to income ratio is also significant. Here's his total lifetime debt payments. And we could certainly model paying that mortgage off sooner if he had the income to support that. I also want to point out in this lifetime income projection chart, you can see early in those retirement years, 2027 through the year 2035, before that first home is paid off, he's dangerously close to meeting his expenses with his income, and that may be an uncomfortable place for Greg. So that's something to consider too. Although it is alluring to invest in real estate, if you're this close to meeting your expenses, you might have to give it some careful thought. Now let's also look at lifetime cash flow. So here you can see that his expenses have exceeded his income, and here again they're slightly over, and here they're finally matching up, and it isn't until 2035 that he can start to see some positive cash flow. And even then, he's got a risk associated with vacancies, expensive repairs, and so forth. And really going to have to do some research on that real estate market to find out if that unit would garner that $2,000 a month rent consistently and what the vacancy rates are. So here you can see on the projected cash flow table, starting with the year 2026 all the way down to 2035, he's got a gap in his cash flow. You can also look at the surplus gap chart here as well and clearly see those negative cash flows and the funding gap until he pays off that primary mortgage. So for Greg, this is a long-term investment with some significant risk. Now let's look at what happens when the mortgage is paid off. All right, so let's go back to the scenario manager. We've got the rental income evaluation, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate that scenario, and let's call this pay off rental at age 75. Creating a new scenario here, and notice that it put it in the middle here. So be careful with that. Nothing's changed just yet. Go to the scenario manager. Next, we're going to go to home and real estate and future real estate sales. And it's already located our one rental property, which we can select, and it defaults to the age that you're going to sell that property. And it calculates the estimated rental income and the estimated mortgage balance in the year 2037. And then we have to indicate where the funds go. And I'm going to put it right back in that CD, and we click save. Let's go into income, passive income, edit that. And now we have to modify this as well to age 75 and click save. All right, so now let's go back to the scenario manager and let's look at these three scenarios side by side. And we can compare, and keep in mind, I wish I could put this over here, but I can't. This is the baseline no rental property. This is paying it off early at 75. and this is continuing to own that. So you can see here the highlighted bars are going to indicate which is the best scenario. The net worth at the end of the plan is highest if he continues to own that property. The average income is higher because he's going to have positive cash flow generated after year 10. Next, his average expenses are going to be the lowest if he doesn't purchase anything, so that's something to consider. The savings at longevity is the highest if he doesn't sell it off. The total lifetime income is the highest if he keeps it. Lifetime total spending is the lowest if he doesn't purchase it, of course. The lifetime taxes goes up significantly, and the debt to income ratio is the highest, of course, if he purchases that condo. So really have to take a good hard look at this. It's going to be very important for him to look at the market, look at the cash flow, look at a sequence of return risk, make sure he's comfortable spending that $100,000 right up front. And the other thing that would be interesting, and he'd probably have to talk to a tax accountant or a certified financial planner, which they do have at Bolden as well. If you look over here, you can book a certified financial planner over here. You might want to look at how you dovetail Roth conversions in with this, because we didn't play that out in these scenarios. So let's go back to pay off rental at age 75. All right. And then we can just quickly toggle here on this home screen between the three scenarios as well and make that determination which way we'd go. We can drill down into a lot more detail here in some of these insights here, and using some of the explorers, we might also look at paying off that mortgage earlier using a 15-year mortgage. Maybe he refinances and so forth. So lots of things to consider, but as you can see, you can clearly model these out in Bolden. Next, let's be honest about what Bolden does and does not do. First, the pros. It shows how rental income affects retirement sustainability, models mortgage payoff and cash flow changes, compares keep versus sell scenarios, and helps reduce emotional decision making. Next, let's talk about what Bolden doesn't offer for real estate investing analysis. There are no detailed depreciation schedules. There's also no tenant level analysis. No surprise repair modeling. However, you can enter these in one-time expenses. There's no specific option for other landlord management tools. What Bolden can model well, adding an investment property in Bolden, you can add a real estate investment and designate it as a non-primary residence. You can enter current market value, purchase price and date, expected appreciation rate, outstanding mortgage balance, interest rate, and loan term. This allows the property to be tracked as part of your net worth over time. Rental income. Bolden lets you input net rental income, not just gross rent. You can account for monthly or annual rental income, ongoing expenses, maintenance, property management, HOA, insurance, vacancy assumptions, indirectly by lowering net income. This rental income is treated as taxable income. Outgoing cash flow that can help fund retirement spending. You can also choose when the income starts and stops. Mortgage payments. If there's a loan on the property, Bolden will track the mortgage payments, reflect how the loan payoff improves cash flow over time, and show how debt reduction impacts net worth. Once the mortgage is paid off, rental income increases automatically in the model. Next is taxes. At a very high level, Bolden will include federal and state income taxes. Taxation of rental income as ordinary income, important limitation, is that it does not model depreciation schedules or passive activity loss rules in detail. So tax treatment is simplified but still useful for planning purposes. Selling the property. You can model selling the property in a specific year, capital gains tax assumptions, and net proceeds added to your portfolio. This is especially helpful for answering questions like, what if I sell the rental at 75 and invest the proceeds? Does keeping it improve my probability of success? What Bolden does not do well, and it's important to know the limitations, there's no detailed cash-on-cash return analysis, no depreciation or 1031 exchange modeling, no tenant level or repair shock simulations, no short-term rental modeling such as Airbnb style. Think of Bolden as a retirement decision tool, not a property acquisition tool. How does this help people make retirement decisions if you're approaching or already in retirement? Bolden shines at answering, does the rental income reduce how much I need to withdraw from investments? Does owning property increase or decrease my risk of running out of money? Is it better to keep the rental or sell and simplify? How does real estate affect my sequence of returns risks? This is where many planners struggle emotionally. Rentals add complexity and concentration risk. Bolden helps make that trade-off visible. Here are some best practice tips. If you're serious about modeling, use conservative rental income assumptions. Overestimate expenses. Run 2 scenarios. Keep the property long-term or sell at a specific age and reinvest. Comparing the scenarios side by side is where Bolden really earns its value. Bolden is a retirement clarity tool, not a property analysis platform. If you found this analysis helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody who's considering the same decision. If you're thinking about real estate in retirement, use the Bolden affiliate link below, run the scenarios, keep the property, sell it later, let the numbers guide the decision, not fear. And don't forget to download the free companion guide in the description below. Retirement isn't about squeezing every dollar. It's about designing a life that feels secure and manageable at every stage. This is Reflections in Real Talk. I'll see you next time.